user group, that's 76% of the avalanche accidents in eastern Idaho since 2000. Hybrid rider is kind of a growing user group in which we just refer to somebody that's using both skis and or motorized and non-motorized forms of travel within a single day. And those two boys from Rigby were both using a snowmobile and skis at the time of their accident, so that's how they're accounted for in this statistic here. So how does eastern Idaho compare to national trends? Well, we just saw that 76% of the accidents are motorized. If you compare that nationally, only about 37% of the accidents are motorized users. So this means that motorized users are making up a far larger percentage of accidents in eastern Idaho than what we see across the country. On the flip side, backcountry skiers and snowboarders account for 29% of avalanche accidents nationally, but there have been no backcountry skiers or snowboarders killed in avalanches in eastern Idaho in the last 20, almost a side country rider. So somebody that leaves the ski area boundary is not included in that statistic. Where are these folks from? I think similar to the idea that avalanches don't happen in our backyard is the idea that we can blame all our problems on other people from different states. And trust me, I'm right there with you. But unfortunately, in our circumstance here is we can't do that. What we found is that 11 of the 17, or 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of the 15 victims were right here from Idaho, or about 73%. And more so, these folks, the vast majority of them were within 100 miles of where they live. So some of these people were just popping over the border. You could almost consider them local anyhow. This is probably the most alarming finding of the study, and this really had to come from digging through a lot of accident reports, sheriff's reports, search and rescue reports. But 6 of the last 7 avalanche victims in eastern Idaho either had no beacon, their beacon was off, or their beacon had no batteries or wasn't functioning properly. So this is a pretty heart-wrenching thing to think about. If 6 people had died, you can imagine that at least some of them, I won't say all of them, at least some of them would still be here today if they simply had the right rescue equipment and had the knowledge of know how to use it, and had partners that knew how to use it. I said 6 of the last 7. The other group that was involved in one of these accidents did have rescue gear, but they were in a party of 4, and all 4 people were caught simultaneously in the avalanche. One was fully buried. Their partners, the 3 of them, did have all of the necessary gear to extricate them, but unfortunately, 2 of them were also buried to their waist, and 1 was buried with just their hands sticking out. So they were unable to help the 4th, who ultimately was killed in the avalanche. So in summary, this is what an avalanche victim looks like in eastern Idaho. They're all men. Most of them are using motorized users, so a snowmobile, 1 snow biker. They're essentially all from Idaho or very near here, and they're in the age range of 30 to 49 years old. I do have a slide that I didn't have time to put in here, but unfortunately there's a large number of kids involved in this data set as well, which is a pretty alarming statistic. So with a better handle of who is getting caught, we're interested in looking at the avalanche information that we provide as avalanche centers. Specifically the quality and the coverage. So are there gaps? Are people dying in places that we don't have avalanche information? Was the information that was provided accurate? Is there something that's missing? So to do this, we looked a lot closer at each one of these accident clusters, the Centennials, the Big Holes, which we separate from the Palisades there, and then the Bear Lake region down in southeast there. Taking a zoom in on just the Big Holes here. The Big Holes have claimed the lives of 3 local teenagers. It has a network of groomed snowmobile trails that provide easy access to some dangerous terrain. You can be riding on a groomer with absolutely 0 avalanche hazard, jump off the trail, and you're in real deal avalanche terrain. Currently, the Big Holes have no avalanche forecast. If you're familiar with the Bridger-Teton Avalanche Center forecast area, the Grays River area, zone is that gray down there by Pine Creek Pass on that side of the pass, but it does not extend into the Big Holes currently. We repeated this type of analysis on each of the different hotspots of accidents, and what we found was that most of the avalanche accidents were actually occurring either within an existing avalanche forecast zone or very near the boundary. So one of the questions the working group wanted to answer was, do we need an avalanche center in Idaho Falls or in Rexburg? And what we found from this study is that no, they take a lot of resources, they're very hard to get off the ground. What we need to do is we need to invest in the avalanche centers that currently forecast in Idaho, meaning the Gallatin, the Utah Avalanche Center, and the Bridger-Teton. So by doing so, by investing in these avalanche centers, we want to give Idaho's forecast areas more attention. We want to add Idaho-based forecasters on snowmobiles that live in Idaho. And we want to, by giving them more resources, we want to allow them the ability to expand their forecast boundaries. The Gallatin is now forecasting for the Centennials. Everybody, a round of applause for that. That's a huge step. I would love to see an avalanche forecast zone extend into the Big Holes. How many people would support that? We can do this. You guys can help us. And here's some ideas. Really, the pillars of saving people's lives comes down to just a few efforts. The first one, avalanche information. We can expand our boundaries. We can give more resources to the avalanche centers that work so hard to provide the forecasts. The next step is avalanche education. This is not an avalanche education course. This you might term an awareness. You will learn some of that today. The next step for everybody else is to go and continue on their avalanche education journey. So go find those cool people out at the booths and figure out how you can do that. The next step after that is building your community. So we'll start by supporting our avalanche centers, and then we're going to build our community. And what I mean by that, a mentor of mine would say that a rising tide floats all boats. You've probably heard that before. I don't care if you're a skier, a snowmobiler, a snowblader, God forbid. Anything of the sort, right? And I'm kidding, of course. We're all in the same boat together. We all want to see each other come home safe, and we can do that by teaming up and looking out for each other. One way that you can look out for each other, you can see where you can submit what you're seeing out there. I understand it's challenging right now in this neck of the woods. You've got 3 different avalanche centers. They have 3 different websites, and they have 3 different ways of submitting observations. That's a little bit daunting, but if you take a picture of this slide, those QR codes take you to where you can submit what you're seeing to your fellow riders. So let's say that you're in the Big Holes, but you do not have a forecast. The Bridger-Teton really wants to know about that, and your fellow riders really want to know about that. So if you saw an avalanche, you go to that QR code, you're brought to a page where you can drop an observation in the Big Holes. It doesn't matter that it's not in a forecast zone. In fact, it has way more value knowing that it's not in an avalanche forecast zone. The Palisades, that's a hard place to ride. And sometimes it can be hard for an avalanche forecaster to get in there, either safely or they don't have the time. These are some big areas, and they need your help. So please submit your observations to the avalanche centers, and thanks to Brett for plugging that as well. That's a huge, huge thing, and it's a community effort. So, in closing, avalanche accidents are tragic events. And I know that many of you know this all too well and have a lot of personal experience in that regard. But I'd like to thank you all for taking the first step today. I'd like to thank you all for showing that you care about avalanche education, that you care about your community and your fellow riders and skiers. And if you guys are interested in supporting the Eastern Idaho Avalanche Working Group, please take down my contact information. There's just a really successful avalanche awareness course in Pocatello. There's another one coming up. Events like this show that communities like you guys care about this stuff, and the more you can populate the map with your observations, the more the players in the room that can actually add resources like the Caribou-Targhee National Forest can put those pieces in place, and we can get the forecasters and information that we need to help us in that journey. So thank you very much, and I'll take any questions.